How many of you resonated with that song? Bring you back? Take you back? Yes. Welcome. Happy Divine Feminine Day. First, we want to acknowledge, honor, value, and celebrate mothering energy and divine feminine qualities today. Today we honor every form of mothering. We honor those that have lost a child. We honor those whose mother is no longer here. We have compassion for those that had a challenging relationship or no relationship with their mother, along with those that wanted to yet could not conceive or carry a child, and those that experienced prejudice in any way for choosing to not have children. We honor you in all ways today. I have mothered several kids and teens in my time and through my work for Girls Inc. and many years as a teen advisor and a minister. Believe it or not, I have 5 step-grandchildren and 3 great-grandchildren. One great-grandchild is a teenager, and the very best niece and nephew who are now 22 years old. This is a call to celebrate the precious gift right now within you to honor the divine feminine. And it's also a call for me to honor the precious gift of my own beloved, beautiful, radiant mother who is strong and powerful. She made me, remember that, sitting right here with us today. So I just really honor the fact that we're together on this beloved day. I love you. So in today's world, so many people are participating in the mothering aspect of our youth. Grandparents, aunts, uncles, single dads. It's no longer just the biological mother taking on duties of mothering. And I honor all of you. However mothering finds you today, may you feel seen, loved, and whole. So you know, I like to start out with something funny. And this is a funny and honoring thing, so let's go to the next slide. Some of you may fully be able to relate to this. She says, 1 vacation day a year? That's all I get? Well, we call it Mother's Day, but technically you still have to work. So isn't that the truth? There is never a time when we're not mothering, whether it's the mothering the divine feminine, mothering and providing nurturing and compassion for ourselves and others. We are always mothering. So there really isn't a day off. Yet here, let's go to the next slide. But this is precious. The kids tell her, Mom, we've hired a few people to fill in for you while you relax on Mother's Day. So if you look at the picture, we've got a fortune teller, a clown, a teacher, a nurse, a chef, a priest, a taxi driver, and a housekeeper. And I'm not even sure all of that depicts everything that a mother does in a day in the lifespan of raising her children, no matter who those children might be. Now, I'm going to be kind of, like I told Eva earlier this morning, I'm kind of stepping out of the closet this morning. I'm going to be bold here because my message changed itself. The Spirit had its way with me this morning and I completely changed my talk, so here we go. But I'm going to point some things out to you that's kind of a part of a very profound message that I'm going to be speaking of today. Take a look at that picture. Do you notice anything about that picture?
Very many men, mostly.
Well, we've got some interesting roles being depicted here that we, the collective we, and I have been working on breaking down pretty much my whole life. Not that there's anything wrong with depicting a nurse as a female or a housekeeper as a female, yet just pay attention. We've got the nurse as a female, the housekeeper is a female, the taxi driver, chef, and priest are males, and then the teacher is a female. So it's doing a little role projecting there, and it's subtle, isn't it? It can be subtle and it can be kind of in our faces, but I'm just asking you to pay attention to it because it's super important. There's a Sunday school teacher that said, "Tell me, Johnny, do you say prayers before eating?" And Johnny says, "No, ma'am, I don't have to. My mom's a good cook." So I thought that was funny too. Dr. Ernest Holmes refers to the feminine principle as the universal womb of nature because, as an omnipresent principle operating through all living things, it knows how to unconditionally nurture and grow to fruition whatever falls into its embrace. Now that's kind of a mouthful, but I'm inviting us to just really take that in for the purposes of this morning. The feminine principle as universal womb of nature, because as an omnipresent principle operating through all living things, it knows how to unconditionally nurture and grow to fruition whatever falls into its embrace. Another term for divine feminine is unconditional love. Infinite presence as the divine feminine is unconditional love. Let's go to the next, oh, no, not yet. Got myself. So I want to tell you a little bit about this slide because if not, you'll just read it. But it's a slide where, yeah, go ahead and go on. The little girl was holding 2 apples and her mother asked for one. The girl quickly bit into one apple and then the other one. Her mother held back her disappointment. And then the girl handed one to her and said, "Here, this is the sweetest one." So can you all resonate with that? That's a bit of the nurturing, mothering, unconditional love that I believe Spirit, the divine, presents and puts out for us at every single moment of biting both apples and presenting the one that's sweetest to us. And we kind of covered that last month in our month of miracles. That's especially if we're paying attention. Then we are able to take delicious joy in eating that sweeter apple, if we're paying attention, of course. It is thought that unconditional love is the most powerful force in the universe because it aligns us directly with the highest vibration of the infinite. Gabriel Garcia Marquez said, "Human beings are not born once and for all on the day their mothers give birth to them. But that life obliges them over and over again to give birth to themselves." Over and over again. We're giving birth to ourselves right now today. Today, we might take in and discover something new, something we hadn't realized before. We may shift our perspective in something, who knows? But we're certainly giving birth to something new today, showing up as ourselves and honoring that. Because today is about embracing the heart of the divine feminine. And we're going to do a deep dive into why we want to do that, why it's so important, and how we're going to do that, or suggestions of how. You get to walk your own path. There's a story of Kate Ogg, a mother's love and embrace brought about by her twin baby boy that was born. And when she gave birth to the daughter, the daughter did well. They were both, it was an early birth. It was 27 weeks and twins, and the daughter was alive, but the son quickly after he was born in distress and he was not breathing. So after 20 minutes of resuscitation attempts, the doctors declared him dead and placed his body on Kate's chest so that she and her husband David could say goodbye. Kate, determined to meet and hold her son, spoke to him, stroked his face, held his tiny fingers. Initially dismissed as reflexes, Jamie began to move. First his chest, and then his eyes, and finally he opened his mouth and was able to swallow a drop of breast milk from Kate's finger. His breathing stabilized, his body warmed, and he regained full color. Doctors quickly realized he was alive and rushed him to intensive care. Let's go to the next slide. This is them after 2 years old. That's Jamie and Emily. And the parents did a 2-year follow-up because this was in Australia, and they kind of became known as the kangaroo effect. It started doing in value and study and importance of skin-to-skin contact. the mother was holding on to Jamie and stroking Jamie and interacting energetically with Jamie. And Jamie came back. So that's the power. That's part of the power of unconditional love. I asked many people this week, all the people that I interacted with this week and came into contact with, I asked them to share the qualities of the Divine Feminine with me, and to also share what qualities of the Divine Feminine did they feel they embodied. I observed the similarities and the differences that was shared to me, and mostly I noticed that the majority hesitated and struggled a bit in naming more than one or two. So I'm going to ask you all, what are some qualities of the Divine Feminine? Wisdom. Compassion. Patience. Nurturing. Forgiveness.
Creativity.
Spiders crawling across my binder right now. Isn't that lovely? Creativity. Curiosity. What else? Oh, oops, what was that?
Love of nature.
Love of nature. Yes. Oh,
Unconditional love.
unconditional love.
Perseverance.
Perseverance.
Receptivity.
Receptivity.
Playfulness.
Playfulness.
Resilience.
Resilience.
Strength.
Strength. Yes, ma'am. I am woman.
Yeah.
So now I'm going to ask this. Yes, ma'am.
Adaptability.
Adaptability, for sure. Now, what qualities of the Divine Feminine do you feel you embody? All of the above. Any others that came up from me asking that question?
Curiosity.
Curiosity. What other ones?
What if? What if?
What if? Yes. What's possible? What else? What other qualities of the Divine Feminine do you embody?
Forgiveness.
Forgiveness.
Caring.
Caring.
What do you say? Intuition.
Intuition. We had not, thank you, my beloved mother, who has strong intuition. The force is strong with this one.
Tenderness.
Tenderness. Any others that's coming to mind? So nurturing, compassion, intuition, wisdom, dedication, tenacity. One that no one said yet, I have witnessed within myself and others is fierceness. That can be a quality embodied by the Divine Feminine is fierce. Fiercely loving, fiercely protective. Do you ever see somebody come in between a mama and her kids? You will see fierce right away. And there's just something really powerful and built in to, I believe, all mothers and divine people embodying the Divine Feminine where that kicks in. Unity's view of the Divine Feminine blends ancient reverence with modern spiritual practice, honoring her as a living, empowering force in all creation, central to Unity's inclusive, nurturing, and balanced approach to spirituality. The Divine Feminine is an ancient, universal archetype representing receptive, nurturing, and creative energy, embodied by figures such as Isis and Shakti and Sophia. It represents intuition, emotional intelligence, and connection to nature, balancing the active divine masculine within everyone. Key characteristics include healing, fierce love, and non-linear wisdom. You all resonate with this? I resonated with non-linear wisdom, right? Sometimes things just kind of come out of nowhere. Often re-emerging today as a spiritual counter to patriarchal, hyper-masculine systems. Folks, it's imperative that we honor and celebrate the cosmic mother of all creation, the genesis out of which all motherhood is based, the cosmology of the feminine face of God, the original grand goddess. There was Mother God long before there was a Father God. Our earliest cosmology and spirituality as a species points to the worship of God as Mother long before the notion of Father God entered into the human psyche. In our more ancient pagan, earth-based, indigenous forms of worship, the goddess or God as Mother was worshipped for thousands of years before the notion of a Father God. Remember that in many of our ancient cultures, the people knew who their mothers were, but not necessarily who their fathers were. In fact, in many cultures, there was not even an awareness of the role the man played in the birthing process at all. The notion that an act that a woman had with a man 9 months prior could result into the birth of a child was a foreign idea too abstract to comprehend. It was our mothers who fed, loved, nurtured, nourished, clothed, protected, and were the life of our life. Our mothers were seen as the source, sustenance, and support of our life. They were seen and felt as the creators of life itself, and there was a reverence for mothers that extended into our first deities being salutacious to the Divine Mother. With the advent of patriarchal prominence some 5,000 years ago, there was also a switch towards a more masculine-based cosmology and conscious suppression of the earlier feminine-based cosmology. As time moved forward, we eventually reached the point of absolute denial of the existence of the feminine face of God, and the goddess was denigrated to the status of simply being a myth. This is the period of the great escalation of violence, war, oppression, exploitation, inhumanity, hatred, and cruelty. I don't even like to talk about it. But that's just it, folks. We gotta talk about it. The feminine has always represented love, compassion, forgiveness, kindness, unity, and oneness. As our societies left from the more feminine-based cosmologies and civilizations to the masculine, and even more importantly, as we went to the extremes of systematically denying and destroying the existence of feminine power, we as societies denigrated into more of a warring society, the type that we see today. The energy and power of the feminine, Mother God, was denied, and all that it represents was no longer seen as power, but as weakness. Thus, we opened the door to the greater worship of force and might that makes right as the predominant definition of our era. In the Gospel of Philip, one of the great Gospels that was left out of the Bible, it says, when Eve was in Adam, there was no death, and when she was separated from him, death came. If she enters into him again, he embraces her, death will cease to be. In other words, they were alluding to a time when the feminine and masculine were united as one, both in the world and within each other and every one of us. At the moment that the masculine began to separate the feminine from the existence of value and importance in the world, death and destruction, cruelty and inhumanity, violence and war became the ways of the world. As the destruction of the feminine became the ways of the world, that came the devaluation of love, compassion, and wisdom. Wisdom has always been the advent of the feminine in almost every cosmology and religion to this day. The Greeks have the most famous goddess of wisdom, Sophia. When you examine the Judeo-Christian tradition, all through the Bible and the Torah, wisdom is referred to as she. So our preoccupation with the masculine and the systemic destruction and devaluation of all things feminine has led to the loss of compassion and love and wisdom in the operations of our world. Now you might be thinking, not in the operation of my world, and I believe that too. I believe I'm preaching to the choir here, actually, as that statement goes. Yet in the full operation of the world, does that resonate with you, what I've shared? Is that something that you've observed or that you feel or that might be waking you up at night? Or you feel like I'm seeing it, I'm witnessing it, what can I possibly do about it? You know, last week I talked about being it just went out of my head. I talked about being an apocalyptimist and said I'm an apocalyptimist. An apocalyptimist is one who sees that destruction is taking place and that there is a chance for great demise, yet I'm optimistic that we will not fail, that we will not falter. I believe in the spirit within the human nature of the soul to rise up in the face of destruction and unfairness and injustice. I believe in that. So I am an apocalyptimist. There is a colleague of mine that's passed away a few years ago, and he asked, are you in touch, his name's Nirvana Gale, are you in touch with your divine feminine? And I believe he was mostly asking his fellow brothers. Of course, I'm asking everyone because it's important for everyone to get in touch with their divine feminine, for us to come together as a society, as a culture, as a world, so that we can get back on track with the divine feminine, the divine masculine, sharing and being honored and revered within each other and ourselves. So he asked, are you in touch with your divine feminine? I'm going to ask you all that. Are you in touch with your divine feminine? Okay, I'm seeing a lot of nods, most of you. And he goes on to say, which is where unconditional love exists as a universal principle, we kind of already talked about that. Those that seem to have a much easier time accessing their feeling nature, which is where authentic love resides. Everyone has equal access to it. We just need to be willing to go there, because it is generally buried a bit deeper in men. Now, this is Nirvana saying that, and he's a man, so I'm okay with quoting him on that. I really don't know if it's buried a bit deeper in men, because I'm not a man. So he says it is generally buried a bit deeper in men and may require some revealing and balancing of their internal energy systems, and that can be flat out uncomfortable for men. Now, I'm thinking it's probably not uncomfortable for the men in this room, yet it may be uncomfortable for the majority of men out in the world. Nirvana goes on to say, I think most men believe that to access the divine feminine within means becoming more vulnerable. And for many, I suppose it could be. But irrespective of the discomfort, it is only in the light of that vulnerability that authentic love fully reveals itself. End quote. A man stopped at a flower shop to order some flowers to be wired to his mother, who lived 200 miles away. As he got out of his car, he noticed a young girl sitting on the curb, and she was sobbing. He asked her what was wrong, and she replied, I wanted to buy a red rose for my mother, but I only have 75 cents, and a rose costs $2. The man smiled, and he said, come on in with me, and I will buy you a rose. He bought the little girl her rose, and went on and ordered his own mother's flowers. As they were leaving, he offered the girl a ride home. She said, yes, please, you can take me to my mother. She directed him to a cemetery, where she placed the rose on a freshly dug grave. The man returned to the flower shop, canceled the wire order, picked up a bouquet, and drove the 200 miles to his mother's house. That's just a story of an example of where I believe he got in touch with his divine feminine nature after taking the girl to the cemetery and seeing the fresh grave dug. We can't deny the feminine without denying ourselves. We are all half feminine. So to deny or destroy the feminine is to deny and destroy half of ourselves. Thus the old adage that a house divided against itself cannot stand. So yesterday, Heather Cox Richardson, are you all aware of who Heather Cox Richardson is? She released a little bit of a write-up, and I want to share a little bit of it with you today. as a part of my purpose of my talk. She said that if you Google the history of Mother's Day, the internet will tell you that Mother's Day began in 1908 when Anna Jarvis decided to honor her mother. But Mother's Day, with the apostrophe not in the singular spot but in the plural, actually started in the 1870s, when the sheer enormity of the death caused by the Civil War and the Franco-Prussian War convinced writer and reformer Julia Ward Howe that women must take control of politics from the men who had permitted such carnage. Mother's Day was not designed to encourage people to be nice to their mothers. It was a part of the women's effort to gain power to change society. Did you all know that? I did not know that. I learned that yesterday. She goes on to explain what the Civil War years taught naive Americans about what mass death meant in the modern era, about the soldiers marching off to war with fantasies of heroism and discovered the newly invented long-range weapons turned death into torture and anonymity. So she goes on and writes a pretty detailed and descriptive write-up about that and takes us through the storyline of why Julia Ward Howe made such a huge difference in starting the idea of celebrating Mother's Day on this day. Because out of this war, the Civil War and others that followed, became a new sense of empowerment for women. Women had bought bonds, paid taxes, raised money for the war effort, managed farms, harvested fields, worked in the war industry, reared children, and nursed soldiers. And when the war ended, they had every expectation that they would continue to be considered valuable participants in national affairs and had every intention of continuing to take part in them. But by the 14th Amendment, which established that black men were citizens, it did not explicitly include women in that right. Worse, it introduced the word male into the Constitution when it warned states against preventing male inhabitants from voting. In 1869, the year after the 14th Amendment was added to the Constitution, women organized two organizations, the National Women's Suffrage Association and the American Women's Suffrage Association, to promote women's rights to have a say in American government. And so from her home in Boston, Julia Ward Howe was a key figure in the American Women's Suffrage Association. And so the story goes, because we're here now, right? And most of us are probably pretty familiar with how the story goes. Yet we're also familiar with how it continues to cycle and circle. Do you all know what I mean? Do you know what I'm getting at and alluding at? Cycling and circling, and cycling and circling. Julia said and commanded, "Arise, women, say firmly, we will not have great questions decided by irrelevant agencies. Our husbands shall not come to us reeking with carnage for caresses and applause. Our sons shall not be taken from us to unlearn all that we have been able to teach them of charity and mercy and patience. We women of one country will be too tender of those of another country to allow our sons to be trained to injure theirs." So she goes on to explain and depict how very different the world may look and feel and operate if the divine feminine had a say. And maybe the policies being written or the rules being created or any of that that's going on. The more we are willing to embrace the divine feminine within ourselves, balancing it with our masculine energy, the more we are likely to live openly in a day-to-day consciousness of unconditional love. Richard Rohr, whom I absolutely love and adore, said this: "Whoever God is somehow profoundly revealed in what it means to be feminine and masculine, both. But in our time, we have to find a way to recognize, to fall in love with, and to trust the feminine face of God." How do we fall in love with and trust the feminine face of God? And how do we implore and invite others to do the same, especially people that are in leadership positions? The write-up that Heather Cox Richardson wrote and what Richard Rohr wrote up this week last year reminded me of a famous book that was published in 1993 called The Fifth Sacred Thing. How many of you have read that book and know what I'm talking about? It's one of my all-time favorite books. It's a 1993 post-apocalyptic book. It's a novel by Starhawk that explores ecological balance, spiritual connection, and the clash between utopia and dystopia. It's set in the year 2048. Isn't it unbelievable how much closer we are to that year than when this book was published? It's like, oh my gosh. And it depicts a fractured United States after a societal catastrophe. It focuses on a city which has evolved into a sustainable utopian city, and that city emphasizes local agriculture, wind power, and communal living, with streets transformed into gardens and streams, and food accessible to all without reliance on money and ownership. And the society is guided by a council of 9 elderly women who listen and dream, reflecting a vision of leadership rooted in consent and ecological harmony. Could you imagine a group of leaders that are rooted in consent and ecological harmony? Can you imagine that? Mm-hmm. Yes? No? Yeah. Yes. Let's continue to imagine that, huh? The Fifth Sacred Thing has been widely read and incorporated into college courses, recognized for its visionary approach to utopian fiction. It's won many awards. It won the Lando Award for lesbian and gay science fiction and has been praised for its imaginative, world-building, rich character development. The title is based on classical elements, fire, earth, air, and water, plus the fifth element, spirit, which emerges when the other 4 are balanced. Ecofeminism and ectopia, the novel highlights the interconnection between ecological sustainability and social justice, portraying a society where cooperation, cultural diversity, and respect for all living things is central. It makes up every decision that they make. And the spiritual and ethical philosophy is that Starhawk emphasizes that honoring the sacred involves creating conditions for nourishment, freedom, beauty, and love, asserting that ecological balance is essential for true freedom. Those were the divine qualities, the divine feminine qualities that we talked about earlier. So I've kind of woven this tapestry of the message this morning to kind of start out with where we are in honoring the divine feminine today, taking us through how Mother's Day really was born and why. And I believe that we're still in it. The reason why Mother's Day was born, we're living it right now, that reason. And I can almost hear, I could hear it this morning at 5:30 in the morning when I was in my office. I could hear Julia speaking to me. She literally said, speak out. Speak out. We must gather and come together and hold that vision that I just talked about of leadership. Imagine a leadership that does this. Imagine a people that has the balance, divine feminine and divine masculine within their very soul and is acting and moving and having its way within their being at that. So how to embody the divine feminine? Embodying the divine feminine means connecting with the sacred, intuitive, and creative energy within you. A force of compassion and wisdom and life-giving power that exists in all people regardless of gender. It's not about conforming to a narrow, soft ideal. It's about honoring the full spectrum of your being, nurturing, fierce, creative, and boundary setting. Core qualities of the divine feminine: intuitive and heart-centered awareness, compassion, accepting, wise, reflective, creative, and sensual, forgiving, and collaborative. These traits are not opposites of masculine energy. They complement it like the yin and the yang. Folks, I think that's where things kind of went awry from the beginning, is thinking that there's a separation of the two. You really can't have one without the other. But as what was stated earlier in my message is when it's attempted to have one without the other, it's not possible. Anything that's divided amongst itself will not stand. And we're not doing a great job of standing right now as a world and holding up to the divine feminine qualities that we know are inherent in everyone. So why embody it? The divine feminine represents the paradigm of universal motherhood, the ability to nurture and heal and create life. Create life. What's going to happen when those that be want to ultimately destroy that which creates life? Will there not be any more life? Is that the ultimate goal? I'm not sure. But I know that I'm an optimist. So I know I'm going to do everything I can to speak out about it. So there are practices to connect with it. So this is getting to the meat and the heart of the talk. So I'm going to invite you to take this in on embodying the divine feminine, the heart of the divine feminine. And I needed to hear these this morning, so I'm going to share them with you. Maybe you do too, I don't know. Slow down and listen inward. Reduce the pressure to do and instead focus on presence, breath, and inner dialogue. Honor your rhythm. Align with natural cycles, lunar phases, seasons change to attune to your body and spirit's flow. Cultivate your intuition. Practice mindfulness, meditation, journaling to strengthen your inner guidance. Express creativity. Engage in art, music, writing, or other creative outlets to channel the divine feminine's imaginative power. Set boundaries with courage. Embrace the fierce, protective side of the feminine and stand up for your values and say no when needed. Practice self-care rituals. Use baths, aromatherapy, or nature immersion to reconnect with your body and earth energy. And reclaim your story. Challenge restrictive cultural narratives about femininity and reclaim your authentic voice and power. There's a key mindset shift because divine feminine is not passive or submissive, no matter what the storyline might be told. It's dynamic, transformative, and capable of both creation and destruction. It's about integrating all aspects of yourself: gentleness, strength, love, and sovereignty. I can't say that word. Sovereignty. Sorry. Say it.
Sovereignty.
Sovereignty. Thank you. Sovereignty. Thank you, Eva. By honoring both the nurturing and fierce aspects of your nature, you can embody the divine feminine as a source of balance, empowerment, and spiritual depth. So that's the invitation, folks. I believe that I am preaching to the choir. I believe we all know this in this room. I really do. I know it, yet how much of this do I practice? How much of that do I practice on a daily or weekly or monthly basis? How much do I make the importance of nurturing and honoring and revealing the divine feminine a priority in my life? Because I tell you, I don't want to say agenda, but our regular lives and how we are, by marketing, taught to live and breathe and have our being in the world is based on patriarchal standards. It's based on patriarchal instructions. It's based on patriarchal everything. So it's being willing to allow that divine feminine nature to show up and reveal itself in every aspect of our life, because we need to be the way showers. We need to show folks, communities, societies, states, countries, worlds, we need to show them the way. Show them the way home into where we integrate the divine feminine and the divine masculine. So let us consciously embrace the divine feminine, the grand goddess, the great mother. Let us consciously embrace her back into our lives. And let us Each of us not only honor those that mother us, yet reclaim the great mother within our own being and within the face of the world. And we're going to go to that last slide because our theme this month is we are the place where God shows up. It's the next one, but that's a good one. The divine feminine resides within all of us. Know her and you shall know peace. But it's the last one where we're going to speak it together. So at the end of every talk this month, we're going to say this together as our affirmation. And this is a part of embracing and welcoming that energy of the divine feminine back into our lives. Even more so. I don't want to assume that you don't have the divine feminine in your life, but even more so. We need more of it. So with me, I am inviting you to state these words as the affirmation today. I am fearless. I am unbroken. I am forever inspired. I am awake. I am alive. I am here to serve the fire within me. I am an ambassador of higher power. I am here to be the presence of love and a force for awakening. I am a communion with souls, everything I am. I am one who melts resistance and separation. I am a love that heals wounds and erases errors or lapses of judgment. I am the essence of home. And so it is. Thank you.